And we also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the streets. You have a right to defend yourself in Florida.
If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
Shoot protesters dead in Florida? Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Hassan, and when I watched this clip, I was honestly appalled and shocked. I just can't believe that we're living in the United States of America, about to celebrate our 250th anniversary next year, and we are watching this kind of extremist statements that ignore reason, rule of law, common sense, common decency. But somebody picking up a brick or something is going to get shot dead, if I understood that correctly.
You're telling me this grown-ass man who's supposed to protect the people of this country got up on the podium today and said, if we feel threatened at any point, we're not playing. Like, your family members will get your sent to their door. I don't even know what to say. Like, what the fuck is happening? How is he allowed to say shit like this? Like,
that was the sheriff of Brevard County, Wayne Ivey. I'm going to disregard the gun part because that's just not happening. You want me to believe that because protesters are expressing their anger at their families being torn apart by the federal government, by ICE, that they're doing that, and they're throwing bricks and they're shooting flares at heavily armed and armored police officers, National Guard troops, and Marines, that gives you the right to shoot them? Like, that's ridiculous. This man is literally drumming up bloodlust to murder protesters in the street. Mind you, in this same press conference, he was encouraging people to run protesters over because I guess that's illegal around here, you know. We live in the worst timeline, and Florida is the fucking worst part of it.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about this brutal, absolutely brutal warning from a Florida sheriff out in Brevard County, Mr. Wayne Ivey, who is now going viral for his message to the left-wing protesters who plan to commit acts of violence during so-called No King's Day, right? This is the day where they all come out and they protest President Trump saying that, hey, we don't have any kings, you know, blah, 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 right? We all know that that's what these people are going to do. Now, Democrats are claiming that this is supposed to be a peaceful protest. However, I've told you guys that these people have lost the benefit of the doubt, right? Nobody believes that when Democrats say that they should be peacefully protesting, that they're going to peacefully protest, because they never peacefully protest, right? None of these left-wing communist Marxist movements are peaceful. BLM was not peaceful. Antifa's not peaceful. Roe v. Wade was not peaceful. The pro-Palestinian protests are not peaceful. The pro-illegal protests are not peaceful. None of these protests are ever peaceful, right? So nobody believes these people when they come out here and say they want peaceful protests, because they don't believe in peace when it comes to getting their way, right? When it comes to their Marxist agenda, they don't believe in peace, okay? So you have smart sheriffs who are coming out and saying that this is not California. This is not any of these other liberal states where law enforcement allows themselves to be bullied by these extremists, right? No. We're not going to tolerate it, right? We're going to have zero tolerance for violent demonstrators. So without further ado, I just want to go ahead and play this clip, and I'm going to play it in its entirety, right? Because you got to hear it the whole way through with no interruptions. Let's get into it.
I'll start out by addressing the doxing issue that we were talking about. Our ICE agents, just like our Florida Highway Patrol, are our partners. We all ride together in this. We all are out here to make sure that we're protecting our citizens, protecting our communities. Many of them have been called to the border. Many of them have been called to other locations to deal with the the amount of fugitives and things that are going on, detainers. So for us, we will have their back. We will work closely with Colonel Howes and his team in making sure that we're increasing patrol, we're watching them. Anybody that's doxing them, as the General said, we passed a law about 4 or 5 years ago that makes it illegal to dox here in the state of Florida. So anybody that's doing that, we will take them to full task on doing it. We will stand with you. I want to define a couple thing, and our General was very kind in how he said things. I'm not as usually as elegant in how I say things. So I'm gonna first say that peaceful protests are part of our democracy. We invite people to share their opinions. That's what our country is all about. The key word in that is peaceful. And if it's peaceful, us in law enforcement are going to make sure you have a safe environment to do it in. That's part of that process. If you let it turn violent, you do not want to do that in Brevard County. I'm going to tell you that, and I believe I can speak for my fellow sheriffs around the rest of the state. You don't want to let it happen. And just so there's no confusion, because I don't want to hear any whining later saying we didn't know, I'm going to break it down for you, all right? Because as you watch these riots unfold across the rest of the country, what you are seeing is buildings being burned down, police cars being bricked, having explosive devices thrown on them, having fire, guns pointed at them, bricks thrown at them, all and on. So I'm gonna break it down for you, all right? And if somebody wants to know what I mean by turn violent, all right, this is what I mean. If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired, because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead. We're not going to play. This has got to stop. You're watching what's taking place out there. You're seeing police officers that are being attacked, being spit on, being put in harm's way just for doing their jobs. You're seeing ICE agents that are being targeted for doing their jobs. And you're seeing obstructionists that are doing all of this, standing in the way of law and order. Not here, not in the state of Florida. So to make it real simple, if you don't want to have any of those things happen to you, obey the law. Go protest all you want. Do it peacefully. Stand on the mountaintops and yell your opinion, your views. We invite that. But don't you dare break the law, because it won't go well for you. All right, General? Thank you, sir.
Wow. Goosebumps. Any questions? Any questions? Right? I mean, he made it very simple that there are consequences, potentially fatal consequences, if you're one of these people who want to engage in domestic terrorism. That they're not going to be soft. They're not going to be lenient. They're not going to be bullied. They're not like law enforcement out there in California, in LA, in these liberal cities that just, again, allow themselves to be taken advantage of by extremists, which, you know, it's not really their fault, because I'm sure that a lot of these law enforcement officers would like to enforce the law the same way that this sheriff is advocating for, except they can't do it because, again, the leadership, the Democrats. But regardless, what he's saying is that, hey, you have the right to peacefully protest, okay? You have the right to make your voice heard. Nobody's taking away your First Amendment right. But there's a fine line between peaceful protest and violent riots, domestic terrorism, okay? What we've seen happening throughout this country in these liberal cities. And the state of Florida is not like the state of California and these liberal cities where, again, they just allow destruction and chaos. It's just not going to happen. And I guarantee you that although We will probably see some violence on so-called No King's Day, right? Because it's impossible for these people to protest without being violent, okay? They have yet to prove me wrong, okay? We probably won't see too much of it out in Florida. And again, the reason why is because there's actually law and order. You have leadership out in Florida that has set an example, that has stated clearly that there will be consequences, that we're not going to let you get away with this behavior. Now, some people call this authoritarianism. They call this fascism. This is not fascism. This is not authoritarianism. This is law and order. And if you're following the law, if you're not committing acts of violence, if you are peacefully protesting, you don't have anything to worry about, period. But if you're not doing that, if you don't plan on doing that, right? If you plan on being an agent of chaos, then you got a whole lot to worry about, at least in the state of Florida, that is, right? So I'm just saying. We're going to see what happens on so-called No King's Day, right? There will probably be some violent protests because, again, these people have proven that they can't protest without being violent. But I don't think we're going to see too much of it out in Florida. But if one of these left-wing extremists, if they do decide to commit acts of violence out in Florida and they end up finding out the hard way, I don't want to hear the boohoo, whining, and crying. I don't care about your tears. Okay, they're not going to have an effect on me because you have been warned. They warned you. They told you beforehand. So again, we're going to see what the leftists have planned. I'm hoping that so-called No King's Day is a day of peaceful protest, right? If you're going to protest, make it peaceful, right? I don't want to see the domestic terrorism. I don't want to see the violence. I don't want to see the chaos. Okay, everybody has a First Amendment right to protest. But again, these people have not proven that they're capable of doing that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.